Imagine a frozen forest in the dead of winter. The ground trembles beneath the roar of tanks. Shells tear through the icy air. Soldiers' breath clouds like smoke, mingling with the acrid scent of gunpowder. One misstep, one hesitation, and everything could be lost. Now picture the map of Europe, December 1944. Hitler is cornered yet defiant. The Allies advance relentlessly. But in the shadows of the Ardennes, a gamble is unfolding, a desperate, daring plan that could change the course of history overnight. Fires blaze in villages. The wind carries whispers of fear and resolve. In the darkness, generals trace lines on maps. Soldiers clutch rifles, engines growl, and every heartbeat counts. The world holds its breath, teetering on the edge of chaos. Welcome, history warriors. I'm Knightley. You're about to witness history like never before. In the next section, we'll step back and see the stage upon which this dramatic confrontation will unfold. The forces, the strategies, and the stakes that will ignite the Battle of the Bulge. The calm before chaos is about to shatter. December 1944. The war in Europe has reached a fever pitch. Months of relentless Allied advances have pushed German forces back across France and Belgium. The Siegfried Line, once an imposing barrier, now seems a fading shadow. The Allies, bolstered by thousands of fresh troops, armored divisions and endless supplies, press onward. Yet the Germans are far from finished. Behind the front lines, deep within the forests of the Ardennes, the Nazi war machine is quietly preparing a strike, a last, desperate gamble. This is not just another clash of armies. It is the potential turning point that could delay or even derail the Allies' march toward Berlin. Every town, every road, every supply depot could become a battlefield overnight. The stage is set, but the storm has not yet broken. Silence hangs in the frosted air, as if the Ardennes itself senses what is coming. Teaser: soon we will examine the strategies, the commanders, and the preparations that will ignite this monumental clash. The Ardennes forest, dense and shadowed, is no ordinary terrain. Narrow roads twist between steep ridges. Rivers and ravines carve the land into natural choke points. Winter snow blankets the ground, masking mines, trenches, and hidden defenses. The Germans know these woods intimately, every path a potential advantage. The Allied forces, spread thin after months of advance, occupy a long, winding front. American infantry and armored units hold villages and crossroads, believing the Ardennes too quiet, too remote for a major offensive. Confidence and exhaustion intermingle, a dangerous combination. Meanwhile, German intelligence works quietly. Reconnaissance units note the positions of troops, the schedules of convoys, and the locations of fuel depots. Behind the lines, factories churn out weapons, ammunition, and tanks. Officers review maps under dim lights, plotting a decisive counterstrike. Victory or disaster, the fate of Europe hinges on what will happen next. Every soldier on both sides senses the tension. The world is about to pivot on a knife's edge. Let's delve deeper into the minds of the men who shaped this strategy, and the plans that would bring the Ardennes to life in fire and steel. The Axis and Allied commands could not have been more different. On one side, Hitler, the architect of a crumbling empire, orders a bold offensive. For him, failure is unthinkable, and yet the resources are stretched, the troops weary, and morale fragile. Generals in the West watch anxiously. Field Marshal Montgomery in Britain and General Eisenhower in France anticipate continued pressure, but even they cannot predict the magnitude of what is brewing in the Ardennes. Intelligence reports hint at troop movements, but the dense forest and winter weather obscure the full picture. For the Germans, the stakes are existential. If this counterattack succeeds, it could split the Allied lines, capture vital supply hubs, and delay the final push into Germany. If it fails, the Third Reich will have nothing left to defend its heartland. The gamble is immense. For the Allies, any misstep could cost thousands of lives, stall momentum, and allow the enemy to regroup. Every mile of forest, every frozen village, every snow-covered road becomes a potential trap or a critical advantage. Next, we explore the strategic build-up, the commanders, the weapons, the audacious plans that will unleash chaos across the Ardennes. Deep in the Ardennes, frost glistens on bare branches. Every leafless tree becomes a potential cover, every ridge a vantage point. In these woods, German officers pore over maps under flickering lanterns. Roads, railways, and river crossings are marked with meticulous care. Hitler's vision is audacious. He seeks a sudden thrust through the Ardennes, a lightning strike aimed at Antwerp. If successful, the Allies could be split, their supplies cut, their advance delayed. For the Führer, this gamble is both tactical and symbolic, a final desperate attempt to seize control of the war's tempo. Commanders know the risks. Field Marshal von Rundstedt, calm and calculating, oversees troop deployment with a mix of experience and caution. General Model, relentless and precise, coordinates armored units, ensuring they are ready for the rapid advance that could determine success or annihilation. The German army moves with silent urgency. Tanks are hidden in forest clearings. Artillery is positioned behind ridges. Infantry drills under the muted light of winter dawn. Every soldier senses the weight of the plan. But across the lines, the Allies are not idle. We turn to their preparations and strategies, each unaware of how close the storm is. On the Allied side, commanders survey a vast, snow-covered front. General Eisenhower coordinates movements from headquarters, eyes scanning maps and reports. He knows the Ardennes is lightly held, but no one predicts a full-scale offensive here. Confidence and overextension are twin shadows over the front. Brigadier generals, colonels, and platoon leaders study their maps, train their troops, and fortify villages. Tanks roll along frozen roads. Supply convoys stretch behind lines. Artillery units prepare for the unexpected. Every decision is measured, yet the forest conceals what is coming. Morale is high but brittle. American troops, many young and far from home, trudge through deep snow, rifles ready, unaware that the Ardennes will soon erupt into chaos. The forests, silent for months, are about to roar with engines, artillery, and the human cry of battle. In the shadows, German spies monitor movements. Weather reports hint at dense fog and heavy snow, a perfect cover. The stage is set. The calm surface of winter hides the storm beneath. Soon, we will meet the men at the heart of the plan, the commanders, the audacious generals whose choices will ignite the Ardennes into battle. Commanders shape the battle long before the first shot. For the Germans, the offensive requires secrecy, coordination, and speed. Panzer divisions must advance swiftly, supported by infantry and artillery. Fuel shortages and winter weather threaten every calculation, yet they push forward, driven by orders, duty, and desperation. On the Allied side, leadership is equally complex. General Patton, ever bold, coordinates armored reserves, ready to pivot where the Germans strike. General Bradley oversees logistics, ensuring troops can advance or reinforce as needed. Each decision carries immense weight. Every miscalculation could be exploited. Weapons are checked, ammunition stacked, radios tested. Tank crews rehearse maneuvers. Infantry drill under muted dawn light, unaware they will soon move into one of the deadliest forests of Europe. The tension is nearly palpable. Soldiers sense something approaching. Officers whisper about rumors of movements, strange convoys, unseen forces shifting behind the trees. The quiet before the storm tightens. Soon, winter's silence will be shattered, and the Ardennes will erupt in fire, steel, and snow. Technology will shape the fight. German tanks, the Panther and Tiger, gleam in the snow, their engines ready to roar. Artillery is loaded with precision shells. Smoke generators and flamethrowers prepare to obscure movements and break morale. The Allies rely on speed, coordination, and reconnaissance. M4 Shermans, though lighter than their German counterparts, move in strategic formations. Artillery units cover key routes. Aircraft stand ready to patrol clear skies once weather permits. Every weapon, every vehicle, every soldier is a piece of a vast unfolding chessboard. The human element remains unpredictable. Troops shiver in frozen uniforms, yet discipline, courage, and training hold them together. Commanders weigh terrain, morale, and weather. Every decision carries consequences far beyond the battlefield. Maps, compasses, and coded messages crisscross the lines. Orders pass down ranks, sometimes delayed by frost, snow, or miscommunication. The army waits, poised on the edge of uncertainty, silence before the storm. Soon engines will thunder, artillery will scream, and the Ardennes will wake with chaos. In the German rear, supply lines hum with activity. Trucks loaded with fuel, ammunition, and rations crunch along snow-laden roads. Engineers clear paths, repair bridges, and mark hidden routes through the forest. The Wehrmacht moves like a living organism, each part essential to survival. Unit commanders brief their men in hushed tones. The plan is simple yet daring. Punch through the Ardennes, capture key crossroads, and split the Allied forces. Speed is critical. Hesitation is death. Every soldier is aware that failure carries more than just tactical consequences. It is existential. The Ardennes, quiet and white, seems oblivious to the approaching storm. But in the frost, small signs whisper of the chaos to come. Distant engine roars, the faint glow of headlights on winding roads, shadowy figures moving beneath the trees. The forest is a sleeping giant, ready to awaken. Across the lines, Allied commanders remain vigilant. Their preparations will be tested like never before. Allied reconnaissance patrols probe the Ardennes, reporting minor German movements. These are dismissed as routine, isolated activity. Commanders do not yet see the storm gathering hidden beneath snow and fog. American artillery units dig in along icy ridges. Supply wagons carry shells for the expected winter engagements, while medics prepare for casualties, unaware of the scale to come. Infantry trains for defensive maneuvers, marking fields of fire around key villages. Every detail is critical, yet nothing prepares them for the magnitude of Hitler's gamble. In the shadows, German troops rehearse rapid advances. Panther and Tiger tanks roar across hidden clearings, their steel cutting through snow. Panzer grenadiers synchronize movements with artillery support, memorizing forest paths, ready to strike the flanks of unsuspecting units. Soon the Ardennes will transform into a chessboard of armored steel and frozen forests, and the first pieces will move into position. High above the Ardennes, clouds swirl over snow-covered ridges. Weather is both ally and enemy. For the Germans, dense fog will shield their advance, masking armored columns from Allied aircraft. Yet it will also slow progress, strain engines, and conceal hidden hazards. Allied commanders count on air superiority, but only when skies clear. They prepare for rapid deployment, repositioning units along secondary roads, setting up defensive positions, and fortifying villages. Communications crackle with updates, plans, and warnings, though winter interference sometimes garbles messages. The Germans rely on timing and surprise. Convoys stretch for miles along narrow, winding roads. Armored units practice formations in secret clearings. Artillery crews calibrate for sudden, concentrated fire. Every soldier knows the mission, cut through the Ardennes like a blade through ice. Soon the quiet forest will erupt into movement, the stillness broken by engines, artillery, and the first shots of battle. Hitler monitors progress from his command post. Maps are spread across tables, markers indicating armored divisions, infantry regiments, and artillery positions. The plan is daring, a simultaneous strike that demands flawless coordination. One delay, one miscalculation, could unravel the entire offensive. In Germany's east, factories churn out tanks and munitions, while fuel depots stockpile for the advance. Troops, often young and inexperienced, are given crash courses in armored warfare and forest maneuvers. Officers stress the importance of speed, precision, and adaptability. Back in the Ardennes, villages lie empty, roads frozen and silent. Snow muffles movement, but each flake of frost carries the tension of the coming storm. Soldiers huddle in foxholes, checking rifles, listening to the forest's eerie stillness. Every moment of preparation sharpens their anticipation. Soon all preparations converge, orders will be given, engines will thunder, the Ardennes will awaken in a clash of steel and snow. German panzer units take final positions. Engineers lay minor obstacles to channel enemy forces. Infantry regiments take hidden routes, ready to envelop villages and cut supply lines. The rhythm of battle is rehearsed in frozen drills, yet human unpredictability remains. Allied patrols note shadows in the forest, movements they cannot yet interpret. They mark crossroads, fortify towns, and prepare to respond. Confidence mingles with exhaustion, experience mingles with uncertainty. The stage is set, but no one knows which move will trigger the avalanche. The Ardennes, deceptively tranquil, hides artillery placements, tank divisions, and infantry concentrations. The forest is alive with silent tension, a frozen theatre awaiting the first act. Every breath, every step, every distant engine hum could signal the coming inferno. The storm approaches. Soon the forest will shatter with explosions and the roar of battle. Across the lines, commanders issue final orders. German regiments receive synchronized attack times, tank units confirm routes, and artillery calibrates for maximum impact. Every unit rehearses contingencies, from forest ambushes to village seizures. Allied officers, unaware of the full scale of the assault, rely on experience, discipline, and intuition. Infantry units tighten defensive positions, artillery prepares for counter-barrage, and armored units move to strategic reserves. Morale is steady, yet tension grips the nerves of every man. The human element is fragile. Soldiers understand the forest can conceal death and opportunity alike. Commanders weigh terrain, visibility, and weather, knowing that the coming hours will test every decision, every order, and every life. Silence before the storm. Soon engines will roar, artillery will scream, and the Ardennes will erupt in fire, steel, and snow. Battle begins. The morning of December 16, 1944, arrives cold and grey. Snow blankets the Ardennes, masking the approach of hundreds of German vehicles. Engines roar quietly at first, then louder, echoing through valleys. Panzer columns cut through trees, tracks grinding ice and soil. Infantry follows, rifles ready, boots crunching through snow. Artillery units position themselves behind ridges, awaiting orders. The forest, silent for months, shivers with anticipation. One misstep, one sudden sighting, and the fragile element of surprise could vanish. Allied patrols spot movement too late. Reports reach command like whispers drowned in snow. Soldiers brace instinctively, but they do not yet know the magnitude of what is coming. The calm shatters as the first shells whistle overhead. Soon, the forest will erupt in fire and steel. Tanks will charge, artillery will scream, and every village becomes a battlefield. Explosions tear through frozen villages. Timber splinters, roofs collapse, and snow is flung into the air. American defenders scramble into foxholes, trenches, and makeshift barricades. Tanks surge down narrow roads, their turrets swiveling. Panthers and tigers roar as their engines churn snow into mud. Shermans fire in return, rounds sparking against steel. Every hilltop, every road junction is contested. The fog hides movements, turning every shadow into a potential threat. Soldiers shout, communicate with hand signals, and fire from cover. The battle is chaotic, fluid, and merciless in its pace, but silent in political intent. In the chaos, armored units collide in frozen clearings, and the battle shifts with every maneuver. Artillery shells create walls of fire and smoke. Trees are uprooted, snow churned into clouds. Infantry pushes forward through mud, ice, and debris. Every step is met with fire from unseen positions. Tank crews curse, maneuver, and aim under extreme pressure. Tiger Ones crush obstacles. Shermans retaliate with bursts of cannon fire. The forest becomes a maze of smoke, steel, and human determination. Command posts attempt to coordinate amidst chaos. Radios buzz with static and urgent orders. Maps are outdated the moment troops advance. Every second counts. Hesitation invites disaster. High above, winter clouds conceal the possibility of air support, but the fog favors the German advance for now. Villages are stormed house by house. Gunfire rattles windows, smoke fills hallways. Soldiers move carefully, aware that a single corner may conceal life or death. Civilians, caught between forces, flee into forests, their tracks disappearing in fresh snow. Panzer grenadiers exploit gaps in Allied lines. Artillery follows, hammering defensive positions. Engineers clear obstacles, mines explode in miniature tremors, and armored units press relentlessly forward. Commanders on both sides watch maps transform before their eyes. Plans become improvisations. Soldiers react instinctively, relying on training, courage, and the sheer instinct to survive. Momentum shifts as German columns attempt to encircle key crossroads. Will the Allies hold? The American 106th Infantry Division faces the brunt of the German push. Roads disappear beneath tanks. Communication lines are severed. Troops dig in where possible, but the weight of armored units is relentless. Artillery shells shred snowbanks and trees alike. Soldiers fire, fall back, regroup. Every minute is an ordeal. Every decision has immediate consequences. Commanders request reinforcements. The front line wavers but does not collapse. Small units execute flanking maneuvers, ambushing panzer columns with precise, deadly timing. Tanks are disabled. Infantry halts advances momentarily. The clash is a brutal ballet, choreographed by chaos itself. Meanwhile, snow and fog conceal movements that could change the battle's momentum entirely. German armored divisions push deeper into the Ardennes. Forests hide their movements, but Allied artillery begins to respond. Shrapnel cuts through frozen air, engines stall in deep snow, tanks skid across icy roads. On the flanks, skirmishes erupt. Infantry firefights rage through villages and farmhouses. The snow is stained with the effort of battle, not gore, but the tracks of human struggle and fatigue. Commanders shout orders through frozen wind, attempting to coordinate units separated by terrain, fog, and relentless combat. Every decision can lead to victory or catastrophe. A sudden breakthrough threatens to split the Allied line, forcing reinforcements into rapid action. At Bastogne, the 101st Airborne braces. Roads are blocked, supplies scarce, and snow piles high against defensive positions. Communication with headquarters is difficult. German forces press from all sides, hoping to overwhelm the defenders before reinforcements arrive. Artillery pounds the outskirts. Tanks inch forward. Infantry probes the perimeter. Soldiers dig, shoot, and hold with tenacity. The forest shakes with every impact. Commanders issue calm, precise orders under pressure. The air is tense with anticipation. Every movement watched by unseen eyes, every sound amplified by the frozen silence around them. Elsewhere, the battle lines stretch across hundreds of miles, each village, road, and ridge a separate battlefield. German mechanized columns push toward critical road junctions. Sherman tanks attempt to intercept, firing from concealed positions. The clash is sudden, violent, and disorienting. Artillery from both sides creates shifting terrain. Trees splinter, smoke rises, and snow churns beneath relentless movement. Soldiers crawl through trenches, move between ruined houses, and adapt to the chaos of a multi-front assault. Commanders make rapid calculations. Which units can reinforce the line, which must retreat, which can exploit weaknesses. The Ardennes becomes a living map of constant flux. Every decision has consequences. Every second could alter the battle's outcome. The morning fog lifts slightly, revealing shattered roads and forests littered with debris. German tanks advance cautiously, yet steadily. Panthers and tigers crush snowbanks as infantry sweeps forward in synchronized waves. American artillery responds, each shell rattling trees and shaking frozen earth. Shermans fire in bursts, their cannons echoing through the valleys. Troops dodge between craters, using destroyed vehicles for cover. Every step is a gamble, every glance a calculation. Small squads attempt flanking maneuvers, moving silently through broken underbrush. Ambushes erupt in seconds. Smoke, snow, and steel blend into a frozen canvas of chaos. Commanders relay rapid orders, adjusting strategies as the forest shifts under relentless pressure. Reinforcements arrive, but the Germans exploit a narrow gap in the line. The fight intensifies. Bastogne becomes a focal point. German columns circle the town, aiming to seize roads that connect the front. Infantry storm the outskirts, artillery hammers defensive positions. The 101st Airborne holds, barricading streets, erecting obstacles, and trading fire with advancing panzer grenadiers. Supply drops are delayed by weather. Snow blankets relief efforts. Troops adapt, turning cellars, attics, and stone walls into strongholds. Every corner becomes a trap, every alley a potential death zone. From command posts, officers track troop movements, issuing urgent messages. Reinforcements are organized, yet the terrain and fog slow their approach. Every decision weighs heavily the line must hold. Elsewhere, armored divisions clash in open clearings, testing both skill and endurance under freezing conditions. The roar of engines fills the forest as panzer units collide with Shermans in frozen clearings. Metal grinds on metal, treads skid on icy soil. Tanks pivot, reverse, fire, and charge with deadly precision. Infantry follows, exploiting tank cover and terrain. Rifle fire pierces the stillness, grenades burst, and smoke curls around tree trunks. Each maneuver, each volley, is measured and brutal in its execution. Commanders shout from armored vehicles and field posts, coordinating flanking attacks and countermeasures. The forest is a chessboard of constant motion, yet each piece moves under the chaos of battle. The Germans push to secure crossroads, threatening to fracture Allied defenses in multiple sectors simultaneously. American units establish makeshift defenses along ridgelines. Artillery pounds advancing German columns. Infantry lies prone in snow, firing through frozen terrain. The sound of battle echoes for miles, metal on metal, rifles cracking, engines rumbling. Commanders face impossible choices. Which sector to reinforce? Which unit must retreat? Which path will lead to tactical advantage? Decisions are made in seconds, yet consequences span miles. Panzer divisions attempt encirclements, cutting supply routes. Sherman's counter, supported by artillery and infantry. Every maneuver is a test of coordination, speed, and nerve. In Bastogne, the 101st faces encirclement, forcing defenders into desperate improvisation to hold key roads. The town of Bastogne becomes a furnace of frozen struggle. Soldiers fortify buildings, barricade streets, and mount counterattacks in tight quarters. Every corner and cellar is contested. Artillery shells shake walls and crack windows. Snow falls in thick sheets, muffling movement, concealing approaching threats. Panzer grenadiers probe gaps, but defenders anticipate ambushes, exploiting every advantage. Supplies dwindle. Rations and ammunition are rationed. Soldiers rely on ingenuity, courage, and communication to hold their positions. Each hour of resistance strengthens the line, but drains energy. Meanwhile, across the Ardennes, armored clashes continue, with both sides pushing, retreating, and recalculating with every shift in momentum. Open clearings become death traps. Tanks fire in volleys. Artillery hammers positions. Infantry charges, falls back, and presses forward again. Snow churns beneath relentless movement. Smoke and steel obscure the view. Confusion reigns. German divisions exploit narrow roads and frozen rivers. Sherman's counter with mobility and firepower, but Panthers and Tigers dominate in direct confrontations. Engineers repair damaged vehicles under fire. Commanders adjust tactics on the fly. Every minute is measured in life or loss. Soldiers adapt, improvise, survive. The Ardennes, once silent and cold, is a battlefield alive with chaos, danger, and relentless momentum. As night falls, visibility drops, but the battle does not pause. Ambushes, counterattacks, and artillery duels continue in darkness. Night brings partial relief from the freezing air, but not from danger. Snow muffles the sounds of movement, yet artillery flashes illuminate fleeting moments of engagement. Infantry navigates terrain with care, wary of ambushes. German armor exploits shadows, advancing along side roads. Shermans respond with flares and preset defensive positions. Commanders risk dispatching small units to probe enemy lines, gathering intelligence amid chaos. Every action is a gamble. Soldiers tire, morale strains, yet discipline and training sustain them. The forest is a labyrinth of shifting fronts, each unit isolated yet interconnected in the larger battle. With dawn approaching, both sides prepare for renewed, intensified engagements that will determine momentum in the Ardennes. Dawn breaks weak and grey over the frozen Ardennes. Visibility improves slightly, but the battlefield remains treacherous. Smoke curls from shattered villages, trees splintered by artillery, snow churned into grey mud. German columns surge forward, exploiting gaps discovered in the night. Infantry moves in tight formations, tanks advancing behind them. Every hilltop and village is contested. The pace quickens fast, chaotic, relentless. Allied defenders counter, repositioning artillery, directing infantry to key choke points. Shermans fire into forested clearings. Artillery hammers armored columns. Communications crackle, orders shouted over wind, snow, and gunfire. The Germans push toward critical crossroads, aiming to sever supply lines and isolate forward units. At crossroads and river bends, intense firefights erupt. Shermans intercept Panthers. Infantry duels break out in snow-covered villages. Every engagement is a struggle for survival and advantage. Engineers rush to repair damaged bridges and roads, aware that mobility will determine who controls key terrain. Snipers take positions in ruined houses, exploiting vantage points. The forest is alive with bullets, smoke, and human determination. Commanders weigh reinforcements, decide which sectors to prioritize, and attempt to anticipate the enemy's next move. The dynamic shifts constantly. Momentum flows like a tide, unpredictable and brutal. In Bastogne, pressure mounts. The 101st Airborne prepares for a renewed German assault, knowing that failure could be catastrophic. Bastogne stands as a linchpin. Roads converge here, vital for movement of both men and material. German forces probe every approach, artillery hammering defensive positions, infantry testing flanks. American troops dig deeper, fortifying streets and buildings. Snow piles against barricades, mud fills trenches. Morale is strained, yet discipline and courage hold firm. Commanders on both sides monitor maps obsessively. Reinforcements inch forward, delayed by weather, terrain, and the sheer chaos of battle. Every decision is immediate, irreversible, and critical. Beyond Bastogne, armored units clash in a deadly ballet of steel and fire, each side adapting to the changing landscape. Open terrain becomes a killing ground. Tanks charge across frozen fields, artillery laying down suppressive fire. Infantry moves with precision, exploiting cover and terrain. German units push with relentless discipline, attempting to cut off roads, isolate villages, and encircle defenders. American forces respond with counterattacks, targeting weak points, setting ambushes, and holding strategic positions. Commanders shout orders, radios buzz, maps are annotated mid-battle. Every engagement, every maneuver is a microcosm of the larger conflict. Momentum shifts unpredictably, hinging on timing, courage, and sheer luck. Small units execute daring flanking maneuvers that could change the course of localized engagements. Every action ripples across the battlefield. Snowstorms return, obscuring vision, complicating movement, and grounding air support. Artillery continues to roar, shells whistling across frozen valleys. Tanks advance cautiously, skidding over ice, their tracks churning mud and snow. Infantry squads adapt, moving stealthily, coordinating with armored units, setting traps for advancing forces. Each village, each ridge, each bend in the road becomes a focal point of intense combat. Commanders calculate risk constantly, when to hold, when to press, when to retreat. The Ardennes, once a quiet forest, has become a labyrinth of chaos, danger, and human determination. As the battle reaches its apex, decisions made in these frozen forests will set the stage for the turning point to come. The turning point. By December 19, 1944, the Ardennes is a landscape of frozen chaos. German troops have advanced deep into the forest, but the surprise begins to fade. Allied commanders read reports with growing urgency. Air reconnaissance confirms German positions, revealing the overextension of armored columns. Supply lines are strained. Panther and Tiger tanks begin to stall in icy mud, engines faltering in extreme cold. Every hour of delay magnifies vulnerability. General Eisenhower orders reinforcements. Patton's Third Army prepares for rapid maneuvering, tanks rolling along icy roads, infantry ready to plug gaps. The tide begins to turn, not with a single strike, but with the slow, methodical tightening of pressure on the German offensive. A daring decision at Bastogne will prove pivotal, forcing German commanders to reconsider their advance. At Bastogne, the 101st Airborne braces for renewed assault. Roads are blocked, yet the defenders remain resolute. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe famously responds to a German surrender ultimatum, "Nuts." The message is brief, defiant, and unmistakable. Morale surges. The defenders hold their lines. German forces, expecting an easy capitulation, encounter unyielding resistance. Every attempt to seize Bastogne stalls under determined fire and improvised defenses. Snow and cold hinder German coordination, further delaying armored advances. Artillery bombardments cannot break the defenders, who adapt quickly, using every building and trench to resist. While Bastogne holds, the wider front begins to shift as Allied reinforcements close in on vulnerable flanks. On the northern and southern flanks, German armored units stretch supply lines perilously thin. Fuel shortages prevent aggressive maneuvers. Tanks halt, immobilized, vulnerable to artillery and infantry attacks. American forces exploit these weaknesses. Small units ambush stalled columns, artillery hammers frozen positions, and airborne units move to cut off reinforcements. Every skirmish compounds the Germans' logistical nightmare. Weather begins to change. The long winter fog lifts, revealing the battlefield from above. Allied aircraft seize the opportunity. Fighter bombers dive on German positions, strafing supply convoys and artillery. The air advantage, previously neutralized by poor visibility, now turns the tide. In the chaos of renewed air attacks, German momentum falters, signaling the beginning of a slow retreat. Across the Ardennes, isolated German units face increasing pressure. Tanks without fuel or ammunition are abandoned. Infantry, cut off from resupply, fights desperately to maintain forward positions. Allied artillery, accurately targeted, disrupts troop formations. Roadblocks and ambushes inflict casualties, though numbers remain neutral in description. Commanders adjust strategies rapidly, reinforcing weak points and advancing along exposed flanks. Historians note the importance of this phase. The combination of determined defense, logistical failures, and timely reinforcements created a cascading collapse in German momentum, one explains. Each delay, each misstep, compounds, and the Ardennes becomes a trap for overextended German units. Panzer divisions attempt a final thrust toward key crossroads. They advance in tight formations, engines roaring over frozen ground, yet snow and terrain hinder movement. Artillery shells pound frozen earth ahead and behind. Infantry intercepts isolated columns. Tanks engage in close combat. Shermans exploiting mobility against heavier German armor. Engineers repair roads and bridges under fire, allowing Allied columns to converge. In Bastogne, airdropped supplies bolster the defenders. Ammunition, food, and medical aid sustain the troops and reinforce the perception of invulnerability. German commanders face mounting frustration. Progress slows to a crawl. The combination of resistance, supply disruption, and weather marks the critical pivot in the Ardennes. By late December 20th, Allied reinforcements arrive from Patton's Third Army. Tanks and infantry move along icy roads toward Bastogne and surrounding villages. German units, already stretched and exhausted, confront coordinated counterattacks. The front begins to collapse incrementally. Villages recaptured, supply lines reopened, artillery positions neutralized. The Germans' initial advantage erodes as they confront both organized resistance and the elements. General Patton observes, "Fortune favors the prepared, but it also favors those who act swiftly. The speed of reinforcement, coordination, and precise execution begins to outweigh numerical audacity." The Ardennes, once a launching point for German ambition, begins to reveal the limits of the offensive. Small units of American troops engage in daring maneuvers, cutting off isolated German squads. Villages once threatened are retaken. Frozen roads become avenues for counterattacks. Every skirmish contributes to the larger collapse of German momentum. Air support expands as the skies clear. Fighter bombers strafe retreating columns, artillery observes from above, and reconnaissance confirms the weakening front. German commanders attempt to consolidate, but delays and shortages make the effort futile. The turning point is not a single battle, it is a cascading series of events. Every delay, every miscommunication, every exhausted unit contributes to the shift. As German forces retreat, the Allies consolidate positions, stabilizing the front and preparing for renewed offensive operations. By December 23rd, weather fully clears. Allied forces now dominate both air and artillery. German attempts to regain lost ground falter. Their units begin systematic withdrawal. American and British commanders coordinate counteroffensives across multiple sectors. Infantry advances, tank support, and artillery provide suppressive fire. The overextension of German forces is laid bare. Commanders recognize the tactical turning point. The initiative has passed. From chaos and surprise, the Allies have imposed structure, organization, and concentrated power on the battlefield. In the coming days, the retreat will continue, marking the end of Hitler's last gamble in the Ardennes. Aftermath and consequences. The Ardennes, once a frozen forest of chaos and steel, falls silent. Smoke drifts from burned-out vehicles, shattered trees, and damaged villages. Tanks rest where they last moved. Artillery lies abandoned on snow-covered ridges. Allied forces consolidate positions. Roads are cleared, supply lines reopened, and forward units regroup. Commanders assess the front. The German advance has been halted, their momentum broken. The map of the Ardennes shows regained territory, strategically vital villages secured, and supply routes restored. German forces, exhausted, cold, and low on fuel, begin withdrawal. Units that survived the offensive retreat under constant harassment from air reconnaissance, artillery, and fast-moving Allied columns. The forest, once a conduit for audacious strategy, has become a trap, revealing the limits of overextension in winter terrain. While the front stabilizes, commanders tally losses, analyze positions, and assess the scale of what was endured on both sides. Forces on both sides count the cost. American units have held key crossroads, restored defensive positions, and reclaimed villages under extreme conditions. Their supply chains, though stressed, remain intact. Troops dig trenches, repair equipment, and attend to the wounded, their breath visible in freezing air. German units face a grim reality. Panzer divisions are depleted, tanks immobilized, infantry thinned. Supplies, ammunition, and fuel are insufficient to sustain further offensive action. Commanders issue withdrawals, attempting to regroup along secondary lines, but winter terrain and Allied pressure slow the movement. Historians note that the battle inflicted a strategic shock. Hitler's last major offensive in the West has failed, and German resources are further strained. Operational ambition collided with logistical limits and determined resistance. Yet beyond strategy and resources, the battle leaves a profound human impact, one that echoes across the Ardennes long after the fighting ends. Civilians emerge cautiously from hiding, surveying towns scarred by battle. Homes are damaged, roads torn apart, and supplies exhausted. Winter's chill magnifies the sense of desolation. Families sift through rubble, searching for essentials, witnessing the cost of war without seeing the spectacle of glory. Troops move among these ruins, tending to the wounded, repairing vehicles, and clearing debris. Medics carry supplies and treat injuries. Soldiers write letters home, recounting survival rather than triumph. The human toll is immense but respectfully understated, a quiet testament to endurance rather than explicit horror. Commanders across the front reflect on what was gained and lost. Every hour, every village, and every strategic road represents careful calculation, courage, and human effort. The Ardennes, though quiet now, carries the weight of memory for both armies. The larger strategic consequences of the battle ripple across Europe, shaping decisions and campaigns for the months to come. The failure of the German offensive has long-term implications. Allied forces regain initiative in the West, allowing for more coordinated attacks into German-held territory. Commanders adjust supply routes, fortify key positions, and prepare for winter campaigns with the benefit of regained territory. For Germany, the loss signals diminishing capacity for major offensives. Armored divisions are depleted, infantry units fatigued, and morale shaken. Commanders face the reality that winter and overextension have exacted a severe toll. Hitler's gamble has drained resources that cannot be replaced quickly. Historians observe that the Ardennes revealed the limits of blitzkrieg under extreme weather conditions. Tactical brilliance alone could not overcome logistical failures, determined resistance, and the vast expanse of terrain. Morale, leadership, and the human experience become as important as territory in measuring the battle's true cost. American troops, though victorious, are exhausted. Men trudge through snow to deliver messages, repair vehicles, and secure villages. Discipline, training, and camaraderie prevent collapse, but fatigue is visible in every unit. German soldiers retreat under bitter conditions. Fuel shortages, freezing temperatures, and continuous harassment prevent orderly withdrawal. Units disband. Stragglers attempt to rejoin their formations, and morale diminishes under the weight of defeat. In both camps, commanders note the limitations of winter operations. Lessons about supply, terrain, and timing emerge clearly. Bold strategy must be matched by sustainable logistics and flexibility. Beyond the immediate battle, the Ardennes leaves enduring lessons in leadership, planning, and human endurance. Equipment losses are immense, but described neutrally. Tanks disabled by snow, artillery left behind, and vehicles abandoned mark the battlefield. Ammunition expended in relentless engagements stresses supply chains, prompting analysis for future campaigns. Allied forces begin repair operations immediately, salvaging what is possible. Engineers work to restore roads, repair bridges, and fortify defensive positions. Commanders plan subsequent offensives, now emboldened by the victory and strategic clarity. German forces regroup further east, attempting to consolidate remaining units. The offensive's failure limits their capacity to resist future Allied advances, weakening their western front decisively. Strategic victory, logistical lessons, and human resilience define the enduring consequences of this winter battle. Casualty management becomes a priority. Wounded soldiers are evacuated, medical teams triage under freezing conditions, and temporary hospitals handle the influx. Respectful attention is paid to all, acknowledging endurance without dwelling on graphic detail. Commanders debrief, noting strengths and failures on both sides. Supply limitations, weather, terrain, and morale emerge as decisive factors alongside tactical execution. Every village, ridge, and forest clearing is scrutinized for lessons. The Ardennes demonstrates that victories are measured not just in territory, but in endurance, coordination, and the capacity to adapt under extreme stress. As the front stabilizes, both sides reflect on the human and strategic consequences, setting the stage for the war's final months. In retrospect, the Battle of the Bulge is a testament to human resilience and command acumen. Winter conditions amplified the difficulty, yet ingenuity, determination, and leadership prevented collapse. Allied forces emerge strengthened strategically. German forces are depleted, morale weakened, and operational options reduced. Lessons regarding combined arms operations, supply chain management, and winter warfare become central to planning for subsequent campaigns. Civilians resume daily life amidst recovery efforts. Soldiers rest, repair, and plan for the next phase of the war. The Ardennes, once a battlefield of chaos, now becomes a canvas of reflection, learning, and cautious triumph. With the aftermath assessed, we now turn to deep reflection and analysis, exploring how leadership, strategy, and human endurance define this turning point. Reflection and analysis. The Ardennes offensive revealed stark truths about leadership under extreme conditions. German commanders relied on bold, audacious strategy, but ambition alone could not overcome logistical constraints. Tanks immobilized in snow, infantry delayed by icy roads, and fuel shortages hampered progress. Allied commanders demonstrated adaptability. Patton's rapid maneuvering of the Third Army, Eisenhower's coordination across multiple fronts, and McAuliffe's defiant leadership in Bastogne exemplified flexible, decisive command. Strategy intertwined with execution, foresight mattered as much as courage. Historians note, the Ardennes was a test of nerve, endurance, and adaptability. Commanders who could adjust to chaos prevailed, while those relying on audacity alone faltered. Beyond leadership, the battle underscored the critical importance of logistics, terrain, and preparation in modern warfare. Winter terrain amplified challenges. Snow obscured movement, mud and ice slowed vehicles, and forests restricted visibility. Commanders on both sides had to adapt strategies continuously. German plans assumed speed and surprise. When snow and fog hindered rapid advances, momentum faltered. Allied forces leveraged these conditions, using terrain defensively and coordinating reinforcements to exploit German overextension. Supply lines, often overlooked in theoretical strategy, became decisive. Artillery, ammunition, and fuel dictated what could be attempted and what was impossible. The battle demonstrated that modern warfare is not only a contest of arms, but also of preparation and endurance. Tactical innovation emerged repeatedly, as small units shaped the battle far beyond what maps and plans could predict. Small unit actions played an outsized role. Infantry squads ambushed stalled tanks, engineers cleared roads to enable counterattacks, and artillery crews adapted targeting dynamically. These micro-level engagements influenced macro outcomes. Bastogne, a single town, became symbolic of resistance. McAuliffe's leadership, combined with coordinated defense and ingenuity, held a critical junction despite being surrounded and outnumbered. Strategists often emphasize flexibility over rigid adherence to plans. Ardennes demonstrated that decentralized initiative empowering local commanders to act can determine the fate of a campaign. Coordination between branches of service also became a defining factor in shifting momentum. Combined arms operations emerged as decisive. Infantry, armor, artillery, and eventually air support had to operate in concert. The Germans relied on surprise and concentrated armored thrusts, yet when these units became isolated, Allied forces could strike with coordination. Air reconnaissance, once limited by fog, provided critical intelligence once conditions improved. Fighter bombers disrupted supply lines, strafed vehicles, and enabled artillery targeting. The integration of multiple branches magnified effectiveness beyond the sum of their parts. Strategic reflection highlights a lesson. Warfare is a system. Command, logistics, terrain, and initiative interlock. Imbalance in one aspect can cascade into strategic failure. Morale and human resilience, often underestimated in textbooks, proved equally decisive in the Ardennes. Morale is intangible but powerful. Soldiers enduring freezing temperatures, ambushes, and constant threat of artillery exhibited remarkable endurance. Leadership that maintained confidence, such as McAuliffe's defiance, boosted effectiveness. Conversely, German troops, advancing rapidly but overextended and exhausted, experienced strain that undermined cohesion. Confidence faltered as units became isolated, fuel ran low, and resistance stiffened. Tactical skill alone could not compensate for exhaustion and demoralization. Analysts observe, human factors resilience, morale, initiative often outweigh numerical advantage or equipment superiority. Logistical planning and supply chain management also emerged as decisive determinants of success and failure. Supply shortages defined the battle. German forces relied on fuel-heavy tanks, mechanized infantry, and artillery. When roads froze and vehicles stalled, offensive capability plummeted. Allied logistics were strained but flexible. Reinforcements moved along frozen roads. Airdropped supplies sustained encircled units. Engineers repaired bridges under fire, restoring routes critical for sustained operations. The Ardennes demonstrates the maxim: no army can operate without secure, reliable supply. Tactical brilliance is nullified when fuel, ammunition, or food fails to reach front lines. Technology, equipment, and firepower, while decisive, were secondary to coordination, adaptability, and endurance in this winter campaign. Equipment effectiveness depends on context. Tigers and Panthers dominated when mobility was assured, yet in snow, mud, and icy roads, even the heaviest tanks became vulnerable. Shermans, more mobile and resilient, capitalized on terrain and coordination. Artillery, often underestimated in popular accounts, dictated the rhythm of battle. Precision strikes disrupted advances, isolated units, and shaped the battlefield. Combined with infantry ingenuity, it produced results disproportionate to raw firepower. Strategic reflection underscores that adaptability, not brute strength alone, is decisive. Leadership, logistics, morale, and technology converge to reveal enduring lessons for modern military thought. The Ardennes highlights a paradox of military history. Boldness is necessary, but not sufficient. Hitler's gamble relied on audacity, speed, and surprise, yet lacked flexibility, realistic logistics, and contingency planning. Allied success arose from combined factors: decentralized initiative, adaptive leadership, rapid reinforcement, and exploitation of environmental conditions. Every micro-decision, from a platoon ambushing a tank to a general diverting reinforcements, contributed to the turning point. Historians summarize, the Battle of the Bulge is a study in the interplay of ambition, preparation, and human endurance. Victory favored those who adapted to chaos rather than those who imposed rigid plans upon it. These reflections set the stage for the final act, the epic closing that will tie the battle to its enduring legacy. Epic closing. Imagine the Ardennes forest, months after the guns have fallen silent. Snow drifts over churned mud, over frozen rivers where tanks once thundered, over villages that bore witness to humanity under siege. Silence carries a weight heavier than any artillery salvo. The Battle of the Bulge was more than a clash of steel and strategy. It was a crucible where leadership, courage, and human endurance were tested under the harshest conditions. Commanders made impossible decisions, soldiers acted with remarkable discipline, and civilians endured a winter they never asked for. History often measures battles by territory gained, by tanks destroyed, or by lives lost. Yet Ardennes reminds us, the truest measure is resilience, the capacity to endure chaos, to adapt, to persevere, and to emerge with purpose intact. From audacious German strategy to heroic Allied defense, every moment was a study in human will and military acumen. The audacity of Hitler's last gamble collided with reality. Overextended supply lines, frozen roads, and depleted resources revealed the limits of bold strategy. Yet in this clash, small decisions mattered as much as grand plans. A platoon holding a crossroads, an engineer repairing a bridge under fire, a commander refusing surrender, these moments shaped the outcome. For the Allies, adaptability was decisive. Patton's rapid response, McAuliffe's defiant stand at Bastogne, Eisenhower's coordination across multiple sectors all demonstrate that success is measured by flexibility and timing, not only by numerical superiority or firepower. The Ardennes teaches that leadership is not about rigid command. It is about perceiving opportunity in chaos, making decisions under uncertainty, and inspiring those who follow. Beyond strategy, the human story of endurance leaves a legacy that transcends maps and charts. Soldiers trudged through snow, their breath visible in freezing air. They loaded artillery, manned tanks, and carried the wounded through forests and villages. Civilians scavenged for food and warmth amidst the ruins. Each person contributed to survival, each action a small defiance against despair. The Ardennes was a testament to human resilience under extreme conditions. Morale became as decisive as bullets, endurance more pivotal than brute strength. Commanders on both sides had to balance ambition with pragmatism, and in that balance, the battle's outcome was decided. Lessons emerge clearly. Preparation without flexibility is fragile. Audacity without logistics is folly. Courage alone cannot replace strategy. As the forest quiets and the snow settles, the echoes of Ardennes continue to resonate in the annals of military history. Victory in the Ardennes was not instantaneous. It was the product of cumulative pressure, coordination, and timing. German forces withdrew in stages, their advance faltering under Allied counterattacks and logistical constraints. The forest that once served as a conduit for surprise now trapped overextended columns, highlighting the dangers of overreach. For the Allies, the battle confirmed the importance of leadership at every level. Decentralized initiative, rapid reinforcement, and combined arms coordination turned chaos into structured action. Lessons learned in the snow of Belgium would inform the final campaigns into Germany, shaping operations with clarity forged under fire. Historians regard Ardennes as a pivotal moment, not only tactically, but psychologically. Hitler's last gamble failed. Morale on both sides was tested, and the momentum of the Western Front shifted irreversibly. But the story is more than statistics. It is about courage, ingenuity, and the human spirit facing winter's fury. Consider the soldiers frozen in trenches, gripping rifles with numb fingers. Consider medics racing through snow to deliver aid. Consider commanders calculating risks that could alter entire campaigns. Every life mattered, every decision rippled across the front. Bastogne remains emblematic, a small town holding against impossible odds. McAuliffe's nuts embodies a spirit that defined the battle. Courage paired with clarity, defiance paired with strategy. It is a reminder that leadership is tested not in comfort, but in adversity. The Ardennes was not a simple victory or defeat. It was a crucible where ambition met reality, where logistics met courage, and where human endurance proved decisive. The echoes of this battle would shape the final months of the European theatre, preparing both armies for what lay ahead. Strategic reflection reveals enduring truths. Winter, terrain, logistics, and morale are as vital as tanks and rifles. Bold offensives without preparation risk collapse. Flexible leadership sustains operations under uncertainty. The Ardennes also illustrates the interdependence of technology and human ingenuity. Tanks, artillery, and aircraft were powerful tools, yet they required coordination, intelligence, and timing. Equipment alone could not secure victory. People did. Morale emerges as a critical factor. Soldiers motivated by purpose, trust, and leadership outlasted opponents who lacked cohesion. Ardennes is a lesson. Warfare is as much about people as it is about machines. In quiet moments after the battle, reflection and analysis show that success is measured not just by territory, but by resilience and adaptability. The Battle of the Bulge ends as a story of contrasts: audacity versus preparation, chaos versus order, cold versus endurance. German forces, bold but overstretched, falter. Allied forces, determined but challenged, adapt and endure. Every village, ridge, and frozen road tells a story. Every soldier's effort, every decision, every moment of initiative contributes to the larger outcome. The Ardennes exemplifies the interplay between strategy, leadership, and human resilience under extreme conditions. It reminds us that history is not only measured by victories and losses, but by the lessons learned and the endurance displayed. The forest carries its memory, silent yet powerful, etched into the narrative of World War II. The echoes of Ardennes guide future campaigns, shaping tactics, leadership, and strategy long after the snow melts. As we reflect, consider this. What does it take to prevail when the odds are against you? The weather is merciless, and every decision carries weight. Ardennes offers the answer: adaptability, coordination, courage, and endurance. Leaders must anticipate, adjust, and inspire. Soldiers must endure, improvise, and persist. Civilians must survive amidst chaos. Together, these forces converge, defining the outcome of a battle and the course of history. The Battle of the Bulge teaches us that even in the darkest winter, human ingenuity and willpower can illuminate the path to success. It is a story of strategy, courage, and resilience, a testament to what can be achieved against overwhelming odds. Next time, Fall of Berlin, the end of WW2 Europe. You won't believe what happened there.